UNI is coming off a second home loss of the season, falling to Illinois State 23-21 in the Dome last Saturday, as we discussed with Ethan Petrick of the Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier. So if you missed that, go check that out. That's from Wednesday on all platforms, YouTube, as well as podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, etc. But the Panthers are back at it today at home at 4 as they take on Utah Tech, the Trailblazers, for the first time ever. On to preview that matchup with us now is Sean Ellertson of the Spectrum in Southern Utah. Sean, I've heard several people just straight up say they've never heard of Utah Tech. So with that said, give us a lowdown on the Trailblazers, who the program is, what their culture is like, what they're known for. Fill us in.
Sure. Maybe part of that reason is because they had a name change. They were formerly Dixie State up until last year. And actually, it's kind of funny. Their basketball program, you mentioned, people don't know where it is. Jay Billis last year, Gonzaga, they played Gonzaga as Dixie State. And I think Sean McDonough asked Jay Billis if he knew where Dixie State was, and he said he had never heard of it. So there are a lot of people out there, and if Jay Billis doesn't really know where a school is, I'm sure a lot of other people don't. But in terms of the program itself, they're in their third year of Division I competition. They made the jump up from D2. They were in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference for a while. So they're still growing as a program, especially at that Division I level. The record is what it is because they're still trying to get that, size, that Division I size, speed, athleticism, the things that you need to really compete, especially in the WAC when you have teams like Sam Houston State and Tarleton and Abilene Christian and some pretty good programs. So even Stephen F. Austin. So definitely still building as a program. Paul Peterson has done a pretty good job of getting these guys ready. They've played everybody tough so far in their schedule. It's, the record is what it is, but they've played teams tough. They played Sacramento State. They had a terrible first quarter. And then the next three quarters, they hung right with them. If you eliminate that first quarter, the final score of that game is 35-33. And so they were right there with the top 5 team. They had a good half against Weber. They were down by 10 at halftime. And then the offense kind of fell apart and Weber pulled away. But once again, that's another top 5 team. So the signs of progress are there.
And so on that timeline of getting close to being at the level of some of these other Division I programs, where are they at? Maybe give us a 1 to 10 scale or 0 to 100. Where are they at, do you think?
I don't know an exact number, but they have a ways to go. And I think part of the reason why they have scheduled such tough teams, last year they played UC Davis. They played a bunch of really tough non-conference teams. And they know that to get to where they want to be, they have to realize where they have to get to in playing these teams, right? So you can't tell how good FCS is going to be if you don't go up against Sam Houston. Obviously, that's a WAC opponent for this year until they move. But you have to play those higher teams to get an idea of as to what it takes to get to a national championship contender level. So they have a while to go. But like I said, they've played teams tough. They've played 2 top 5 teams well for at least half the game. And they still have Stephen F. Austin coming up. They still have Sam Houston coming up. So there will be more tests and more opportunities for growth. And that's really what this is about. Talked to Paul Peterson at the beginning of the year before games even started. And I asked him, is this year where you want to start seeing some tangible growth, some tangible results for this program in your third year? He's like, yeah, we pretty much want to start to see the wheels start to turn here in year 3, whether it's record wise, which once again hasn't been there, or just production and, just feeling more like a Division I program. And so far, I think they have done that.
And, I think it was right around the time where Dixie State at the time shared that they were going to be moving to Division I, that they signed that contract with UNI to do a home and home. And so clearly signing up to try to play some of the best of the FCS obviously doesn't show in the record this year for UNI so far.
Missouri Valley
traditionally. Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Missouri Valley Conference is a great football conference anyway. So even, UNI's record isn't great. You guys are playing teams like Missouri State and all those guys. So the level of competition is there.
Right, exactly. And UNI, one of the traditionally better programs in the country. And so as we're talking about Dixie State here, Utah Tech, my apologies, Utah Tech here, they have yet to win a Division I football game this year. Beat Shadron State 56-10. Where's the mental state of the team right now? Are they trying to take it one game at a time, or do they feel like they're moving in the right direction as the season has progressed?
Yeah, I think they do think that they are moving in that right direction. Like I said a number of times already, they've played teams tough. They should have beat Abilene Christian. They were up at the half, and then Victor Caballes was 7 of 13 at halftime, finished 12 of 34. He's not usually their starting quarterback. They faltered in run defense in the second half. So they should have won that game. And after that game, you could tell that they were pretty dejected. They had a chance to win that game and just couldn't. So, but I do think they're in that right track. That Chadron State game was really weird. They were neck and neck at halftime, and then Utah Tech got a pick six from Caden Smith-Begrevich, and the whole game flipped. They had 4 turnovers in the second half and wound up blowing out Chadron State, taking care of a Division II team that they should have. So, but yeah, they're still taking it one game at a time. There's no loss in the locker room. Guys are still showing up, competing. There's still faith in Paul Peterson. They gave him a 5-year contract extension at the beginning of the year, so there's no worries there. So the guys are still showing up, playing hard. It's tough making that Division I jump.
And as we're talking about that record and where they're at in terms of health, one thing we definitely have to talk about is where the team is at offensively. Obviously, coming off that bye week, Kobe Tracy didn't play the week prior, and then there's Victor Caballes, who you've mentioned a few times. I'm assuming Tracy out with an injury. What's going on there?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the same injury. They've played this really tight-lipped. So against the Weber State game, he took a beating. It seems though every time they drop back to pass, he was getting hit, flushed out of the pocket, sacked, whatever the case might have been. In his last throw that game, he short-armed his target by about 5 yards and grabbed right for that pectoral shoulder area. And so he missed the rest of that game, but played the next week at Southern Utah. But once again, took another beating against Southern Utah. They pulled him a couple of times in the second half. And then when I showed up to the game against Abilene Christian on Saturday, I assumed that Kobe was getting the start. There was no indication that he wouldn't. So when I showed up and got into the press box about 30 minutes ahead of kickoff, I found out that Caballes was starting. And so on the 2 deeps this week, Caballes was listed as the starter and Kobe was the backup. And so I'm not sure who you'll see. I'm assuming we'll see Caballes to start. I don't know how Kobe is feeling. I don't know if it's that shoulder area that he was grabbing at. So I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll see Caballes start. I don't know if you'll see Kobe Tracy in any capacity. You might see some Boone Abbott in there as well, the 3rd string quarterback who can use his legs. Maybe they try and work him in there that way. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting decision on Saturday as to see if Kobe's ready to go.
In regards to Caballes, I mean, just looking at the stats, it's been a rough season for him so far. I believe it's 33% completion percentage. I think 1 touchdown to 7 interceptions, something to that effect. He's a Washington State transfer.
Yep.
Has it been learning the system? Has it been the offensive line struggles? What's going on with Caballes and why are the struggles there?
It's a mix of things. It's not the system. The system isn't the issue. Sometimes it is the offensive line just not giving him time and he's forcing things, but other times it's just bad reads. Against Sacramento State, he had, I think, 3 interceptions in the first quarter. One of them was a pick six at the goal line that went for 98 yards that really flipped the game on its head. It was a 14-point swing. And then he threw another pick right after that. And after that, Kobe Tracy was in. And so Caballes started that game. Kobe wasn't the starter at the beginning of last year and then worked his way up the depth chart and started the last handful of games and played well in those games. So it was kind of surprising to me to see Caballes get that start on the first game. But once Kobe got the reins, he took it and ran with it. And he was really good until that Weber game and the Southern Utah game where he was clearly not 100%. But with Caballes, just that first game that he had an interception late against Abilene Christian that was deflected at the line, I think, or tipped. And it was in garbage time. So it didn't really matter to the impact of the game. But like you said, the numbers haven't been pretty. And so it's going to be huge to see if he gets to start and if he can play to a level where Utah Tech can hang in the game, because UNI is a team that doesn't beat themselves. And so you can't beat yourself with turnovers and interceptions like Victor has done so far this year.
And UNI has shown this year that they'll capitalize on turnovers. Obviously, Wu Governor with 2 pick sixes in 1 game back-to-back against Western Illinois. He leads the team with 3 interceptions so far. Now, there's, like I've said, UNI, the record doesn't reflect the level of talent on this team. The defense has not been traditionally, or been what it has traditionally been, but there is still a drastic amount of talent on the defensive line, especially Devin Rice, Caden Houghtelling, Christian Boyd, of course, the more notable names on the defensive line. Because of that level of play and what you've mentioned of the offensive line for Utah Tech, would you as a Utah, if you were a Utah Tech fan, would you have a level of concern going into this game again that he's going to get that whoever's at quarterback is just going to get throttled?
Yes, I would. I would have a concern with that. It's kind of weird because Weber's so good defensively, and Southern Utah has been good defensively too, but they're not on Weber State's level, obviously. So it's been a mix of defensive line talents that have really given them troubles. Like Weber State's way up here, Southern Utah's not quite at that level, and I would definitely be concerned, especially if the offensive line can't hold on to their blocks, and if UNI brings pressure. Victor's not bad with his legs. He can make plays with those legs. He'd prefer to sit in the pocket and make throws from the pocket where he's comfortable. But that offensive line is a concern. And with Kobe, I think one of his best traits is when he's on the run, especially if he's rolling out to his right side. He's able to throw a pretty accurate ball on the run. So he's been able to escape some pressure and make some plays down the field with his legs, extending the play, rolling out of the pocket, or even, he's not the best athlete in the world, but he'll pick up some yards with his legs if he needs to. So, and maybe that's by, a force of the offensive line that they have to do that. But I think there is some level of concern going forward with the offensive line.
There's been a lot of different ways the offense has gone about things. I mean, it's 30 plus times throwing the ball just about every game, but then you have that stud running back in Conley. He appears to be a dude as far as I can tell, the bit that I've been able to see. What can you tell us about his style of play? What's been proven to work for him in the Utah Tech offense with him at running back?
Yeah, you said it. Quali Conley is a dude. He was a backup last year for Drew Canelli-Robles and has really stepped up. And he showed flashes in the COVID season and then last season as the backup. And this year, he's just taking it to a new level, really got on the ground, or bad pun there, but, really got it going against Chadron State with, I think he had 150 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, and then had a really good game against Abilene Christian. I'd like to see them use him more. He's only gotten 20 plus carries in 2 games. And that we've mentioned the offensive line already. If they're not able to block in the pass game, taking pressure off of whoever's under center, give Quali the ball. He's proven to be able to get tough yardage, and Quali is a guy. He's a pretty solidly built running back. Maybe not breakaway speed, doesn't shy away from contact. I think one of his best traits is his vision. A couple of times the offensive line, especially in the middle, has been plugged up and he's been able to bounce it outside and pick up 10, 15 yards. So his vision is something that I've really been impressed with watching him this year, and he's really taken strides. And Coach Peterson and the staff are really, really high on where he is and where he can get to.
Last thing for you. How about the defense? What's their base? Do they like to blitz? Is it bend, don't break? What's the philosophy for the Trailblazers defense?
It feels like a bend, don't break defense. They give up a ton of yards and a ton of points, but there's talent there. So it's weird. They don't bring a lot of pressure and they don't get a lot of pressure. They've only had 3 sacks on the year. 2 of those are from Cyrus Webster, and Cyrus got injured last game against Abilene Christian, was listed as a backup on the 2 deep this week. So I don't know if you'll see him, when you'll see him. Kind of same thing with Kobe, up in the air, going through protocols, that type of stuff. But they don't get a ton of breaks defensively. Their 2 best players are Tyrell Grayson and Darius Nash. Their 2 safeties on defense are the 2 best players. Tyrell's a stud. They're really high on him and where he can be as just a redshirt sophomore. They have senior linebacker Malaki, who's kind of the heart and soul of that defense. May not make an impact play. He might not get a sack or an interception, or I don't even think he has a tackle for loss, but every time you'll see he is rallying to the ball. He's always in on the play, and they really respect his leadership there. He knows what he's doing. So it is an interesting defense. They give up a lot of yards and they're still getting there, but there's talent at all 3 levels, whether that'll be on display. I'm sure you'll see a ton of Tyrell Grayson. That's the one guy who is going to make a play either in the defensive backfield with an interception. I think he has a sack in the air and a couple of tackles for losses. So they'll move him all up and down, and he'll make plays sideline to sideline, at the line of scrimmage, downfield. So that's really one guy to look out for in the defense.
Perfect. Great stuff. He is Sean Ellertson from the Spectrum in Southern Utah, at Sean Ellertson on Twitter. First time appearance. Solid, man. You did a great job. Thanks so much.
Yeah, not a problem. One more thing to look out for is Joey Hobart, the wide receiver, had 4 100-yard receiving games to start the year. 2 weeks ago against Abilene Christian, didn't get to that marker, but he's made play after play for that offense. He's their best offensive player. So look for him to get back over that 100-yard marker this week, and look for him to maybe make a play or 2 that leaves you wondering, how did he make that catch for a kid who's 5'11" on a good day? So watch out for Joey Hobart.
Sean Ellertson, making sure we touch all the bases before he gets out of here. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for hopping on.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.